Okay, so picking up where I left off, because I ran out of space, should have cleaned off my phone, plus the battery was getting low, so I needed to recharge it. There are plenty of people out there who are making videos about, gun reviews, um, gun testing, torture testing, or, um, what sort of, gun a beginner should buy versus someone who's advanced, and plenty of people who go over breakdowns and modifications and things like that. So that really, it isn't the purpose, I should say the ultimate purpose of what I'm doing here. Um, as I said, uh, there is sort of an undercurrent to everything here, and that is, you sort of get this idea of the natural consciousness associated with a particular type of platform. When you look at a sword, a Japanese katana, you think it's just a sword, but a lot goes into that. Well, a lot goes into personal modifications, and people who do them don't often talk about them. A lot goes into choices, uh, what sort of, whether you decide to own a gun or whether you don't is sort of a life choice. You have various reasons for either or. And rather than getting hung up on the minutia of politics concerning the Second Amendment or politics concerning weapon ownership and which ones are good and which one are clunkers and whatever. The whole idea here is that you as especially if you're a martial artist, this is mainly directed. It's directed at everyone, but it's mainly, I make these videos primarily for, you know, well-trained martial artists, veteran military, people who know this stuff and are looking for maybe a different perspective on things, maybe something they have not even heard before, because there are certain traditions and there are certain ways of doing things, and each school and each society has these different views, and I try to, include my own perspective on top of all these different facets and try to break it down into what is simple that, even, a beginner who has no martial arts experience, has no experience with, weapons or warfare or even philosophy, um, is not very historically literate. And, when you get down to the politics of the Second Amendment, it's less about self-defense. It's less about hunting. It's less about the right of revolution than it is about history. Um, and so when you hear people say, we're in the modern era, we don't need that anymore. Well, and they said the Titanic would not sink. And, going back even further, there was always, this is the pinnacle of, human history. I mean, the Romans had plumbing and they thought they were awesome, but the Aztecs had it way before they did. The Egyptians thought they were king of the hill, and that was the end all be all of their society, and that was their mindset, just like it's the mindset of people today. That, well, the Constitution isn't really valid. Well, the Bible isn't really valid. Well, philosophy isn't really valid. It's been replaced by science. And then here comes string theory. And we have this great idea, and it's mathematically astute, and it makes sense, but we can't prove anything. And that's philosophy. So if there's one thing that doesn't change throughout the course of history, regardless of whatever the epoch is or the era, it's this human condition of paradigm Ergo, all that is in front of me is all there is, but there is always something more to look at. And so I hate to sidetrack onto politics like that, but I myself have put up with a lot lately because of this sort of not even socialist movement in America, because it's definitely there. This sort of, we want to be, uh, equal under tyranny, there's something deeper than that, and that's this complacency. As long as my trash is picked up, as long as my water runs, as long as my electricity is turned on, and as long as I have my TV and I'm comfortable with my central air and heating, then I don't care what goes on over there. And that's not a new thing. So it's not a new thing at all, but it's something that's, at least in the world today, because of the amount of time since the last World War and since the end of the Cold War, there's been this trend towards complacency, because for a time the threats that were out there, for example, when I was growing up, there was the threat of nuclear war, and we heard about it all the time. And then when the Soviet Union fell, you didn't hear about it. It just, we won. Well, apparently not, because, not long after that, things started to go downhill again, where people were a little bit less relaxed in their lives. But it seems that, these incidents, be it Oklahoma City or Columbine or 9/11, or the USS Cole attack, which, most people in America didn't give any thought to that because it was over there and it doesn't concern us. 9/11 was a big thing because the World Trade Towers were this icon. When you looked at New York, you saw that, and now they're gone. But now you have this new generation growing up that never grew up seeing that, so they don't think much about it. And they grew up in this same civilized modern society where everything is sort of, you go to the grocery store, you don't have to go hunt, you don't have to plant a garden, you don't have to do anything, you just go down to the grocery store. But they don't think that, what's there came from the fields, it came from the farms. And that's a very, very, very big discussion. But the bottom line being is that, you should explore concepts, whatever they are, whether it's a simple gun, whether it's a martial art, whether it's a method of government, whether it's a philosophy, whether it's a science, whether it's a system of logic like mathematics, and there are others, language is another, and there are several languages. And there are several forms of mathematics that you can subscribe to. Because, for example, 2 plus 2 equals 4 is pretty, that's fundamental. But when you get into algebra, and when you get into order of operations, you have to agree on certain things for everyone to say, let us proceed forward. And most people don't realize that. They think it's set in stone. Well, the Egyptians also thought that if it was carved in stone, it literally was carved in stone. Well, in this case, it's not quite so much carved in stone. And what we've done here is taken, a basic cheap shotgun. It's cheap because it doesn't cost a lot. And, you can get it at Walmart, whatever. And with just a little bit of know-how, you can alter the appearance to where it no longer looks like sort of a benign hunting rifle. Now it looks like, and I've heard people say this to me, this looks like a weapon of war, dude. Okay, but it fires the same rounds as it did before, at the same rate. It's still a pump. It looks different. Yeah, it looks like some sort of war tool. but it's mechanically no different than the factory breakdown. It has, you know, there are some, there's a reason I did the rail. You know, mainly because of this scope. I have this infrared scope that I wanted to add, and you know, it's a little bulky. So this rail adds a little bit of beef to it. And you know, the pistol grip gives you a little bit more stability, and I like this too because that adds to the stability. And you know, you can add accessories, you know, torches, lasers, whatever. But it's still the same gun. So we're going to add another because we went ahead and took that flush choke bore off, and now we're going to add an extended rifle bore. So when we're dealing in this case, these are hollow point sabots. This will give them a little bit of a spin, and we should be able to get, you know, maybe another 100 feet. These are rated to about 300 feet. So, but they're coming out of, you know, a smooth bore. They may tumble, whatever. Give them a little bit of a spin. And adding some barrel length should give us a little bit more muzzle velocity out the gate. So we've removed our choke, our cylinder bore choke. And we're going to go ahead and add our extended rifle choke. Just screws on. Yeah, it's not rocket science. And that's why you should take the time to educate kids. Don't just say, you know, don't be one of those parents that closes the world from your kids. I mean, obviously there are things out there that kids, you know, wait till you're 18 junior, then you can find out. But there are other things where it's like, you know, you should at least, you know, especially with like, you know, it's not just guns, okay? It's also cars, anything that's dangerous, you know. Why do we have so many pregnant kids? Because you didn't talk to them. Oh, don't bring that up. That's embarrassing. It is a little. But if you explain it to them in a very dry, scientific manner, you make it disinteresting. More than anything, you explain the repercussions. Yeah, guns are really cool, you know, but here's what can happen if you don't respect what they are. And further, you know, there's this thing called the Constitution, and there's this thing called the Second Amendment. Well, what's that for? Hunting and self-defense. Oh, well, that's really cool, but do we need that anymore? Now you're getting into a deeper argument. You know, have you ever heard of the Soviet Union? Have you ever heard of Nazi Germany? More than anything, have you ever heard of the era of enlightenment? The French Revolution, the American Civil War. You know, my dad didn't educate me in guns. You know, he didn't educate me in a lot of things. He educated me in fishing because that's what he liked. And he educated me in science because that's what he wanted me to get into. And so, of course, I got into those things. I know all there is to know about the forbidden visions. But everything else I sort of had to find out on my own. You know, and it was more practical sciences with him. Like when it came to relativity and quantum mechanics, I had to learn that stuff on my own. You know, he was very behind and supportive of, well, first of all, my music. I mean, I will say that about, you know, both of my parents, is that they were supportive of my music. They never really considered it a viable career option. Which, you know, it's very hard to make a career in music. But they were very supportive of it. You know, what I wanted to do was up to me. And that's something that a lot of parents don't do. They sort of decide things for kids. I mean, you know, kids are their own people. Let them decide what they want to do with their lives. And make sure when they ask you about something, you know, and it wasn't as if I asked my dad about guns and he never told me. It just, I never asked. I didn't care. You know, I bought this gun last year. It's my first gun that I've ever bought. The one I owned before that, my brother gave to me. I never fired it, ever. It sat there for, 7 years, and I never fired around. Ever so much as I was disinterested. Now, martial arts I've been into ever since I was 7 years old, and my parents were supportive of that as well. But like I said, my dad was not, even though he served in the Navy, first of all, his position was in electronics. He was a chief petty officer. He ran the radar, and then when he got out of deployment, he taught advanced electronics warfare at the Naval College. A lot of that stuff we still use today. But he took the time, to answer questions, to talk with me. I actually had a pretty decent relationship with my dad. I mean, all kids, get into it with their parents from time to time. But my dad and I, we talked. And he was a pretty smart dude. Before he died, he was designing PCI chips. He knew electronics engineering back and forth. And if he knew about something, he would tell me. And it wasn't that he didn't understand quantum mechanics and general relativity. It's just that he never brought it up because that wasn't his thing. He was very practical. Engineers are very practical. And, something he used was Ohm's law. That was his idea of science, because that was what he worked with. Newton's laws of motion. And he got me into the space program, and I was a big fan of NASA growing up, and I used to watch the shuttle launches, and I still remember the Challenger accident. But that was what he was into. If he didn't know something, and I asked him, he'd say, I really don't know. He would be honest with me. He did not know. And it's not a sin to admit that you don't know something in front of your kids. It is a sin to not educate them. Does that look cool or what? So, is it a mortal sin? No, but parents should spend more time with their kids. So what we're going to do, just turn that on. What we're going to do before we add the scope, we'll add the scope last. We're going to go ahead and add a couple accessories. We'll start with the torch. I'm going to just turn it around the other way. It's just a simple little screw that holds the Picatinny rail clamp on it. And slap it in place. Getting tight. Okay. And we're going to add the laser. And to do this, you need your Allen wrench. So, X wrench, whatever you want to call it. Different people call things different stuff. It doesn't mean, and there are established conventions for what this should be called or that should be called. But a lot of times, even those established conventions, they have multiple designations for the same exact thing. So there are a lot of people that think, you know, this is a certain way because that's the way I was taught. And if you don't understand things the way I understand things, then you don't know anything. And that's not true. You know, if you understand the concept, you know, you don't need to get into specifically what's a tomato and what's a tomato. Ghost ring sight. I'm just adding stuff here. So this can be ranged in 3 different ways. So I'm going to make this look super cool. Probably look a little junky when I'm done, but you know, whatever. I can always take stuff off later. Now, these are called iron sights. I don't know if they're actually made out of iron, but it's almost ready to kill Nazis. Got my clip tube all taken care of, and bullets ready to go in the hole, and God. Hopefully he doesn't find out where any other holes are and what they do. I am beefy shotgun with too much crap on me. Alright, just about finished. So we have a Picatinny to Picatinny adapter here. This is a scope. Comes with a Picatinny rail on it, and you can, you know, they do that so you can mount it to tripods or whatever, and you can also mount it to a rifle, and it has a reticle, so it can be used as a hunting scope. Just make sure it drops over there. Keep pushing the buttons. Luckily, I keep not turning it on, so good deal. Slide it in there. Not that much. Tighten it down real good. You want to tighten it down pretty good. Again, it doesn't require 250 foot-pounds of head bolt torque. You want to get it good and snug. So you want to be, you know, mindful of what stress tolerances are on any given piece of equipment, be it, you know, an accessory, be it the primary base of the gun, be it, my mechanical engineering professor used to say, you know, you torque this down good. You know, if it's iron, go ahead and torque it down real good. Aluminum, you know, you give them a good snug, because once it heats up, you know, a lot of guys would crank down on that aluminum, the engine would heat up, the bolts would crack, the plenums would crack, and but there we go. And now we have a super cool shotgun, and that looks like an assault rifle. It absolutely looks like something that SWAT would storm your house with, and they might. Usually use semi-autos though. But it's still the same gun. So, and that's it. That's all she wrote. Now I do want to go ahead and show that It does now take 8 of these 2 3/4 inch rounds, the 70 millimeter. It's specifically the Remington. You know, something like, you can see they are a little bit. No, these are both 2 3/4 inch 70 millimeter rounds. The Remington, and it could have something. I haven't actually gotten any Remington sabos yet. I do need to get that. And you could saw these off, sure. But this is a waterfowl speed steel load. Has the star cap on the end, whereas this is a sabot slug, hollow point sabot slug. And even though they both, you know, say 2 3/4 70 millimeter, just that little bit makes a difference. And if I try to put 8 of these in, it will stop right about there. So, see if we can fit 8 in now. Of course, I know we can, but we're just going to have to prove it for all those YouTube scientists out there. Okay, so there's 6, and here's 7. Now, that's normally where we'd stop, but since we have just a little bit more room, 8. Woohoo! Got a jam. Not good. Here we go. Because of the angle I'm holding it. Come on, you. Did I, like, forget something? I have to check that spring. Got a problem with it cycling here. I'm wondering what the crap went on. So I'm going to have to break this down and check it, of course, which kind of sucks. It doesn't feel like there's any spring in there. I wonder if it hung up. Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's any spring in there at all. There we go. Now it's empty. Yeah, because there's no follower coming out. I'll just put that follower in. So anyway, yeah, it's buried in there. But that's the problem. I can feel that the follower's not in there. It's stuck up there somewhere. It may have gotten stuck up here. So like I said, that's a new modification I just did, to where I changed out the follower. And that could be why. So, I will take a look at that. But otherwise, that's, you know, that's the first time that's ever happened. And that is a new follower, so that's interesting. I wonder. You know, the good news is I don't have to take the whole freaking gun apart to do that. Why don't we investigate? Are you bored? I'm bored. Why the hell not? Why the hell not? Problem. You know, if this happens to you, you never know. That is odd because it was cycling perfectly and now it's just like
that follower got hung up somewhere. So we're going to find out. We're going to investigate. Find out what these shape-shifting albino lizard bitches did to our shotgun. They told me it was an 18 speed. That's really odd. Yeah, I was wondering why. It's like, why does it jam up now? That follower got hung up there. I'd like to see how that happened. Why the frick not? I'm actually kind of glad that certain things like that, you know, I mean, obviously I was stupid with the bolt carrier, but you notice when I did that, I wasn't forceful with it. You know, even though in my mind I had it the right way, you know, as far as I was concerned, that was correct. I still wasn't forceful with it. You know, it was just like, why doesn't this fit? You know, what am I, it was just, you know, sort of just, you know, well, you know, when something doesn't work right, I'm going to sound like Josh here for a minute. When something doesn't work and you're not doing it right, duh. You know, the whole point of Tai Chi and internal martial arts is feeling. And in that case, you know, forcing it, I mean, I could have actually gotten that thing all the way in there. Possibly, you know, if I'd pushed it hard enough, I could have jammed that thing up really good. That would have been one hell of a video, wouldn't it? But just, you know, gentle rocking it back and forth. What's going on here? Oh, look, I'm an idiot. That's the problem. Well, to the same degree, something went on here that I didn't see. Neither did I foresee. And I'm going to find out what that is as soon as I fix my camera. There we go. Alright. So, we have just enough room to get our Allen wrench in there. Loosen this up. And that's what we're going to do. Another thing about buying an inexpensive gun is you can break it down as many times as you want and not even care. You know, you spend $2,000 on a gun or whatever, you don't even want to touch that thing. You know, it's like the Second Amendment Foundation pistols. It's like, I'm not sure I'd even want to fire that thing. It's too pretty. And generally people don't. You know, you buy it as a display, but you know, people spend more. $4,000 on a Smith & Wesson Titan. It's like, dude, what is up with you? Spend $200 on a shotgun. You can do whatever you want to it. You know, you're just learning. Don't worry about impressing anyone. Worry about getting things done correctly. Oh God, tell me I'm not gonna have to. Yeah, I am, because this is so freaking tightly put together. I have to take the pins out. That's what I'm talking about with, you know, I mean, that shit is on there. It is on there. It is not coming off unless I pull that quad rail off. There is no way. It is not coming off. So I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. It is, you know, a problem where the follower got jammed up. So, you know, if that happens, go ahead and take it off. Take a look at it. You know, oil it up. Cycle it a few times. Run some shells through it. See what happens. But yeah, it's an incredibly good build. So much, in fact, where I just can't really remove one piece and get to the guts of it. I have to take it all off. And that does kind of make it a pain in the butt to work on. But if you're going to work on a gun, make sure you got the time for it. You know, if you're not going to take the time with it, if we cannot take time, how do we ever have time? If you're not going to take the time with these, get yourself a taser or something. So, well, anyway. Anyway. So, it did get hung up. It probably got hung up past the extension. And there's no getting that thing off unless I pull the quad rail off. And that's going to kill another 20 minutes of video just to show you what I've already explained to you. So, we'll go ahead and call it at that. Hope this was informative. Have a nice day. As always, have a nice day.